Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. 2-for-1 special for the Nebraska Cornhuskers today as they land their second commitment from the transfer portal in the last 24 hours. Former Oregon running back Dante Dowdell commits to Nebraska. And Dill, this is a guy that I remember talking about coming out of the 2023 class as being one of the more sought-after running backs in that 2023 cycle. Ran for over 5,000 rushing yards during his high school career. 6'2", 215 pounds, owns a 24-second 200-meter dash time as well. You're talking about a big physical running back with a thick lower half, but has absolute burners when he gets to the second level. And we've talked about this, right? Nebraska, their goal heading into the transfer portal was to build around this offense, build around the young quarterback room that you're going to have in 2024. The best thing you can do is give the young quarterback a running game. Dante Dowdell certainly going to help in that department. Really excited to get into it. Before we do, just want to say, one, thank you to you guys. There has been just a ton of support from the Nebraska fans as we've covered these commitments. The boys weren't going to miss one late Saturday night. If y'all do enjoy the content, enjoy the updates, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, appreciate all the Go Big Reds in the comment section. You guys have been absolutely awesome. Dill, and a quick shout out before we get into Dante Dowdell. Nash Hutmaker, Nebraska defensive lineman, getting it done on the mat for Nebraska wrestling with a pin. Absolute dog. Back to football here, Dill. Dante Dowdell, how are we feeling about it?
I mean, these are one of those nice transfers that's like not really a transfer. It might as well just be somebody you took right out of high school because obviously really didn't play a ton for Oregon as a true freshman, but coming in very young and figures to be a big part of, you're right, like that Dylan Rhule era at quarterback, and hopefully can be kind of a staple and be more of a dependable all-down running back than I think what Nebraska had this year.
Nebraska got super thin there. And right, you have Gabe Irving coming back from the hip injury. Obviously, Anthony Grant just couldn't hold on to the football. Nebraska was kind of forced to run with Emmett Johnson, who I believe started the season kind of working with the scout team. And then he was the lead back towards the back half of this Nebraska season. And I think you saw the importance of having depth at the running back spot. Now, this is in no means a shot at Emmett Johnson because I think Emmett Johnson is going to be a feature in this running back room for the next couple of years. Dante Dowdell, I really do think is special. Like when you combine, and I also think he gives you a little bit more of that physicality presence that Nebraska wants to run the football with. In 6'2", 215 pounds, he's a bruiser. And when you go back and watch the high school film, he is a no-nonsense back. He is not going east and west. He's going north and south. He's absorbing contact, running through contact. For what Nebraska wants to do running the football, I think Dante Dowdell could be a guy that I could see getting 20, 25 carries per game for the Huskers in 2024.
And you're right, because they really did run a physical style. They like to keep it inside and be able to bruise teams. And I mean, they really, aside from Gabe Irving, they really didn't kind of have that guy who really, that's how he played. He could hammer it in. And you're right, when he got hurt, it did change how they ran the ball. I think it did kind of affect that offense broadly. So now to have some more depth and really, in my opinion, kind of, you're right, that feature guy, I think it'll be huge in terms of what they want to do. And it probably will somewhat start from the ground game back and then allow Dylan Rhule or whoever is playing quarterback to be able to work off of that instead of just be that pure air raid.
And Matt Rhule said it. Like Matt Rhule said throughout the season, like this is our identity. I thought he made a really one post-game press conference. He's like, our identity is running the football, and it doesn't really matter whether we're running the football well or not. That's our identity. We are going to run the football, and I think a guy like Dante Dowdell certainly going to help what Nebraska wants to do, and I think you're already seeing the effects of having a guy like Dylan Rhule come to Nebraska. And we said it, we kind of defined it, and we rarely use this term, but program changing commitment from Dylan Rhule. You're starting to see the attraction, right? When you see the number one quarterback, the five-star quarterback come to Nebraska, I mean, Dylan Rhule was on the visit and was largely, when you listen to Dante Dowdell and Isaiah Nair and why they committed to Nebraska, they both mentioned Dylan Rhule. And he was on campus for these two visiting. You see that kind of gravitational pull of the five-star quarterback on the recruiting trail here.
And you need that guy because ultimately guys want to come play to win. I know people like talk about NIL and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, when you win more, everyone benefits. They get more exposure. They get better shot at the draft. it's just a more positive feel. So at the end of the day, and what matters, what drives winning, it is good quarterback play. So when you get that guy in, I just think naturally everybody buys in more.
All right. So we have one more thing to talk about, and that is Dana Hogerson getting some buzz that he might be winding up at Lincoln in some sort of coaching capacity for Nebraska. And you're seeing the inflood of talent, right? So you have Dylan Rhule locked in the 2024 class and Danny Kalen. Dante Dowdell comes. Isaiah Nayor comes. We talked about him this morning, a wide receiver that I'm extremely excited about. Now you're starting to hear some buzz that Dana Hogerson, who I believe was at the wrestling match with Matt Rhule, is considering taking a job in Lincoln. Dill, this fires me up because as much as you want to say Dana Hogerson, what he is as a head coach, who's really successful at West Virginia, had some good years at Houston too, quite frankly. Dill, what are your thoughts on Dana Hogerson potentially winding up in Lincoln here?
I mean, one thing Dana Hogerson knows how to do is that's build a passing attack. And you kind of, a Mike Leach disciple, a Hal Mumm disciple, even going back to the old kind of days of the air raid. So a guy who's been around that development of this modern day passing attack. And you look at Nebraska, they certainly didn't have anything that resembled that attractive, exciting passing attack this year. So they can get him in as that type of like analyst role, that Nick Saban rehabilitation school for coaches sort of job. I think that could certainly help because, again, you just didn't really see enough from that air attack. And as you kind of bring in Dylan Rhule and want to be able to be more balanced than you were, it's not to say that their identity won't be running the ball, because as long as Matt Rhule is kind of the guy there, I think they're going to want to be able to play physical. But Matt Rhule and everyone else who coaches football knows you still got to be able to throw the ball really effectively, and they just couldn't last year.
100%. I mean, you want to get a passing attack going. Bringing Dylan Rhule is a good start. Bringing the offensive coordinator from the 2007 Texas Tech Red Raiders, where Graham Harrell threw for 5,700 yards, Michael Crabtree caught for 1,900 yards. That's kind of the coach that you want to bring in, and at least, let's not get it twisted. This is not a Nebraska team that's going to go to the air raid system here. You're not going to see the Mike Leach offense run in Lincoln, Nebraska, but getting some of those passing attack elements within this program, because one of our biggest knocks on this Nebraska team last year was just so one-dimensional. And I get the quarterback play and the wide receiver play. The wide receivers were inexperienced. The quarterback play just simply wasn't good enough. But when you want to get an offense that's dangerous, you have to be two-dimensional. You have to be some sort of a threat down the field. Dana Hogerson, Dylan Rhule, Isaiah Nayor, Carter Nelson, some of the wide receivers like Malachi Coleman from the 2023 class, certainly going to help.
And honestly, I don't know if you can talk about, like, the quarterback play was obviously bad. We all know it wasn't very good. But I do think there was a lot more you've seen really good coaches do to get some sort of rhythm from passing attacks. And you just didn't really see Nebraska ever find anything that worked for anyone. I think they tried to do some similar things. I mean, they didn't get the ball out that quickly at times. They like to go deep, heavy play action and see if they get the ball over the middle of the field. And they kind of went to that a lot. It never felt like they did much to get anybody any sort of rhythm in that passing attack.
I agree, though. They never really had an identity in the passing attack. Like, what scheme, what players, how do you want to get the ball down the field? I feel like they didn't really have that. It was like, we're going to go heavy play action, stretch it down the field, or maybe throw some quick screens out to Billy Kemp. There was never like a schematic approach to the passing attack. And another conversation to have, Scott Satterfield was kind of under some heat, right? This Nebraska offense obviously wasn't good enough in 2023. I think Dana Hogerson is the perfect guy to come in, and whether he's playing that heavy of a role in game planning, which I think he would. He's one of the better game planners that I think you see in college football, like allowing Scott Satterfield to learn some stuff from Dana Hogerson, bounce some stuff off of him going into a game week. I think that would really help Scott Satterfield as an offensive coordinator as well.
100%. Not a super old coordinator either. I mean, he's kind of still developing into what he'll ultimately be.
Yeah.
It's not like a guy who's 60 years old or something who's been doing it forever. I mean, he's still learning, and you got a guy in Dana who, I mean, done at the highest levels for coaches who, I mean, they've changed the game. They've revolutionized how teams play offense. There's a reason all sorts of offensive records get broken nowadays. It's not just because, like, the defense got worse. It's that these offenses, these schemes have gotten better. And Dana Holgerson's kind of grown up with some of the architects of those new offensive systems that, frankly, they allow teams that maybe before you get the premier 5-star talent across your roster to thrive in that air attack. I mean,
I think that's a really good point. Like and especially like focusing on the development of the quarterback and development of the wide receivers. Like that's probably where Dana Hogerson plays the biggest role. Like getting these guys open, the football in their hands, getting Dylan Rola or whoever's playing quarterback some easy throws. I think that's where Dana Hogerson probably has his biggest impact. And I think the last thing to note, Matt Rhule, there's a reason he's had so much success as a head coach at the college football level. And yes, he's a very good evaluator. He's very good at implementing the culture. He's very good at player development. A lot of that success has to do with surrounding yourself with a strong coaching staff. And you look at Matt Rhule's coaching tree, Fran Brown probably being the best example, working with him at Temple, I believe at Baylor as well. Now he's a head coach at Syracuse with a ton of buzz around that program. I mean, Matt Rhule's done a phenomenal job attracting assistant coaches, getting good assistant coaches. I think Dana Hogerson would be another one along the list. I mean, Tony White, we know is soon to be a head coach somewhere. I trust Matt Rhule with this coaching hire 100% here.
Yeah, and honestly, it's nice to see that he's not like afraid of bringing in guys. It's not like that situation. Yeah. You got coaches who are, okay, if I feel like I'm not the smartest guy in the room, then that's threatening to me or whatever. It's like Matt Rhule knows who he is. He's been good enough at what he does that he doesn't need to fear that. He can bring in a guy who's had a ton of success in his college coaching career, both as a coordinator and as a head coach, and be comfortable having him around. It's like, Nick, there's a reason Nick Saban's done that for forever. There's a reason you're starting to see Kirby Smart do that with some of his offensive assistants too. I mean, when you can get a guy like Dana Hogerson in there and just,
I was going to say, I think Nick Saban is the best example of that. And you saw Jimbo Fisher, this was his downfall. Like Jimbo Fisher so stubborn in running his way, running the offense his way. Didn't bring in an OC. That offense never got off the ground. Nick Saban, when he has seasons that maybe don't achieve expectations for a couple of years, he's willing to change. Brings in guys that are going to revolutionize the offense or defense. He's open to new ideas. Matt Rhule, obviously a little bit of a different approach with Dana Hogerson. Him showing the, I guess you'd say, humility of saying, hey, we need to change some things on offense. We have a young quarterback in Dylan Rola who we want to get off the ground and kind of use as a premier quarterback in college football. Let's go bring in a guy like Dana Hogerson. I would be thrilled with the hire. Really excited for Nebraska. We might be talking about another guy in Jamal Banks committing soon. So stay tuned. Again, Nebraska fans, appreciate you guys always rocking with the boys. If y'all do enjoy the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate all the support you guys have shown, and we'll talk to y'all later.